Hello everyone, it's been a little bit since I've gone live. I'm going to be hosting an event with an incredible activist that I've become friends with over the last number of weeks on the trail. Yeah, I just wrapped up an event with No Dems Left Behind, which was tremendous. And one of my boys is in the room here with me, and he's trying to keep from going to bed. You want to say hello? Well, look at that, he's eating some cake. Look at that. That's good fun. So let's see if we have a person who's going to join us. Let's see what we have. Ooh, let's see. I'm going to view some requests. And internet magic is happening. So I'm going to be joined by an actress and activist who you
We did it!
Well, we did do it. Hello, Sophia. How are you?
Hi.
The incredible Sophia Bush. Sophia, say hello to my son Christopher.
Hi. What are you eating? Can I have that?
He's eating some cake, and he just said, "Who's Sophia Bush?" and then he went back to his cake.
Cool. So that's great.
So yes, we are working together on this incredible campaign, Defeat by Tweet, that is up to 1.3 million or so and counting, thanks to incredible donors like you all.
Yeah.
So Sophia, how did you first hear about Defeat by Tweet? Was it through our mutual friend Xander that you were just on Instagram with?
Yeah. So one of my dearest friends, Jordan Brown, is here with me. We have done so much political organizing together over the years. We met. You know Jordan.
Hey. Hey Jordan, how are you? Look at that. I didn't know you were in the same structure. I always saw the two of you on like different calls, so I thought you were far apart from each other like the rest of us.
Well, we only live 10 minutes apart.
Yeah.
So
we became an isolation pod, I don't know, like 5 weeks ago or something, 6 weeks ago.
6 months ago.
I don't know. I don't know what time is anymore, but we were just like, it was very hard to be like best friends and neighbors who couldn't see each other. But with the kids, we just wanted to be super careful. So we did like repeat COVID tests just to be safe before we co-potted. But now we can hang out every day if we want. Yeah.
Pod life. I'm glad you have good people in your pod, Sophia.
Yeah, I'm glad you do too.
I have no complaints, really, you know, as long as my family's happy and healthy. And they've seen much more of Daddy recently than had been the case for 2 years prior.
That's so nice.
So, Sophia, you and I first met at an event in Iowa, and I have to say you're one of the most genuine activists where you've obviously dedicated a ton of time, energy, heart, soul, spirit in driving awareness to many incredible orgs. And now here we are. Like I remember, like you know, when I was on the trail, you would see celebrities doing various things, but I have to say you were always a cut above in terms of your sincerity and level of commitment to the orgs that you were helping.
That's really, really kind, and I really appreciate that. I don't look at even the word celebrity always feels so weird to me. I'm like, I don't know. I just have a job that comes with a big light. And for me, knowing that I have the privilege of a platform is something I don't take lightly. And I genuinely believe that spending that privilege is a duty and a responsibility. And I think that's why, you know, you and I clicked. We look at service in terms of duty to each other, in terms of responsibility to our community, in terms of how to push progress, not only in terms of policy, but also innovation, big ideas. You know, what does it mean to continue asking America to evolve and to continue being as radical an idea as her very inception was at the time, you know?
Yeah, and I know that's one of the themes of tonight where the RNC is trying to pose radical as a bad thing, and we're trying to say, look, actually the history of this country is quite radical if you reflect on it, and radicalism has been a force for massive progress in many areas. So I love the fact that we're trying to frame radicalism in the right light, because anyone who thinks things are going well right now, I mean, I don't know what you know planet you're on. I mean, things are going quite terribly, and so we need some positive change.
Yeah, we need some very positive change, and you know, it's funny. Any idea can be branded in a way, right? And And I think it really says a lot about the root of fear in the modern day Republican Party or in the Trump Party, however you want to call it. We've got some friends who call themselves recovering Republicans who are like, this is not our party. But they're being so rooted in fear that they're trying to
Oh my gosh, yesterday
brand.
was just out and out being like, you will not be safe. They're like, use the word
No,
like that,
I mean,
which
Steve is not kidding around here. And, I think this idea that they're trying to claim that progress, that civil rights, that rights for women, that access to healthcare, that better early access to childhood education and childcare, that affordable rent, that these things are radical, speaks so much to the kind of fear that the other side is trying to incite. And I always go back to Angela Davis saying, radical simply means grasping things by the root. So to look at the cause rather than the symptom. If we're looking at wealth disparities, how do we look at what's causing that? How do we look at the rolling back of corporate tax, which is not meant to impede business, and in fact does not have to, but is simply meant to make sure that everyone in this country pays their fair share. I read an article in the New Yorker probably 3 months ago about a billionaire in, what is that town in Connecticut? Greenwich, that's the one. This guy who's this big billionaire in Greenwich, Connecticut, who in 2018 only paid $617 in taxes.
Wow.
Because he was able to write off all these things of his many billions of dollars as corporate losses and this, that, and the other. And I think about the fact that domestic workers in the United States pay far more than $617 in taxes a year. And so I just want us to all pay our fair share, because our fair share means roads. Our fair share means elections. Our fair share means the United States Postal Service. Our fair share means the Department of Veteran Affairs and people who've defended our country coming home and getting the treatment that they need. The list goes on. It means that kids get to eat when they go to school. And that, to me, doesn't feel radical. And I know it doesn't feel radical to you.
Well, I feel like radical and necessary are now kind of hand in hand at this point. I mean, if you think about like being able to provide healthcare to everyone, that's necessary in a pandemic. And a lot of people would cast some kind of universal healthcare plan as radical. So I'm with you. I mean, we have to start solving the problems that have just been getting more and more serious and corrosive over the last number of years and decades. And if you fall far enough behind, then overdue change can actually seem quite ambitious or radical, but it's just overdue. It's just as we've been falling asleep at the switch for decades, in large part because, and this was something that really hit me, Sophia. I was talking to an activist named Lawrence Lessig. Do you know Lawrence or his work?
I don't know that I do.
He's a democracy reform thinker, and he said something to me that really helped hammer it home. He said that we've been living in a vetocracy, which is that everyone can say no. Like if you're like a corporate interest, you can keep something from happening. Like we're in a system where if your job is to keep anything from changing, you can keep it from happening. And so we're all just casting about saying like, why is nothing getting done? It's because our system is designed so anyone can clog it up. And so a lot of people have been clogging it up, and the excesses have just gotten worse and worse. And I thought Lawrence's diagnosis was very apt. I said, oh my gosh, he's right. Like there are all these big companies that are able to keep anything from happening to them. And in the healthcare context, you want to look at that. I mean, who's that? It's the pharmas, it's the insurance companies, it's these massive players that are making a ton. And anytime anyone wants to touch their industry, they can just gum up the works. So that's the system we're stuck with right now. And that's why folks are getting more and more frustrated, and why calling for quote unquote radical change, it actually becomes much more common sense. Yeah.
So how are you looking forward? I mean, obviously we're doing some really great work to raise incredible C4 money for Black-led political organizations in swing states with Defeat by Tweet. Anyone who's newly tuning in, I know we've been, at this for a minute, but Andrew and I are part of an enormous cohort that's trying to turn Trump's hate into positive action and representation. You know, the idea of, you know, hate can't drive out darkness, only love can do that. We're like, well, we can do that. So we've helped to work on a board of an organization that is basically weaponizing Trump's hatred against him. So anytime he tweets something awful, money gets raised. So each of us can go online and make a determination of whatever we can afford, whether that's 50 cents a month, $1.50 a month, $5 a month, $15 a month. I don't know, whatever you got. But you can say this money is something I could give up, and then you will get notifications about where your pennies go every time, every month. And it's pretty cool that we're on track, as Andrew said at the beginning of this. We've raised nearly $1.3 million for incredible progressive organizations, and it feels kind of badass. And it's been cool. You know, I've gotten a bunch of tweets from people who are like, I'm embarrassed to say I voted for Trump last time, and now I'm signing up for this thing. I feel like I owe it to the country. And I was like, I kind of love that.
That's beautiful, Sophia.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're getting those messages.
Yeah, and it made me think, actually, because, you know, your campaign appealed to some folks. I know you got similar messages about, you know, your economic policy ideas appealing to some former Trump voters. And I'm curious what you think we need to know about that audience. I'm curious how you think we need to reach that audience right now, how we need to let people know that we're not going to, you know, we're not going to put our hands up and say, no, you can't come over here. Everyone's always welcome on our team. You're always welcome to come in here and roll your sleeves up and work to better your community. And so how do you appeal to those folks? How do you talk to those folks? What do you want them to know? Because I know there's definitely a couple of them on this live right now.
I think the number at the beginning of this year was that 42% of my supporters weren't sure they're going to support the Democratic nominee, and a significant proportion of them voted for Donald Trump. And I met many of them out on the trail. And I think a lot of the folks who voted for Donald Trump were just tired of business as usual out of Washington. They just looked up and said, this is not working for me. A lot of young people can relate to that too. Like, a lot of young people look up and be like, I don't think this is working for us. And that's a very, very rational and legitimate response to what's been going on in the country for the last number of years. And so they voted for Trump in part as just like a changing of the dynamic, or saying, look, we need to do something different. And then a lot of those folks now are like, you know, Trump is not the kind of different that I actually wanted. You know, like, this is not working out so well. And so I think that many of them are very open to looking at Joe and Kamala. And then some of them are like the folks that have messaged you saying, look, I'll actually throw a few pennies or dimes or bucks towards helping defeat Trump. And I think that defeat by tweet is so clever because it's taking Trump's perhaps greatest communication tool, Twitter, and then it's using it to fuel these organizations that are trying to get out the vote in the places that would matter the most for Joe and Kamala. It's very, very high leverage, I guess would be the business term. And so I think people can see how clever it is. Someone called it jujitsu, which is like sort of using your enemy's force against them. And my social media feed. See, we read all of our social media, not all of it, because there's a lot. But so the feed by tweet is very, very clever and pointed, and it's one reason why I was so excited to be a part of it, because it struck me as smart. You know, it's like, and when you're trying to figure out how you can make something positive happen, there is a task of figuring out what's a smart approach and what's like a not as good approach, or what's effective, what's ineffective. We all have that problem where we're looking up saying, well, I'd like to do something in this direction, but I don't know if this is the way. And hopefully having people like you and me, that folks, at least some folks, trust our judgment, where they're like, okay, this is a smart way to go. It's an effective way to go. It's going to go to good organizations. And as someone who's run a nonprofit, I cannot tell you what a thrill it is. If you're running, let's say, this Get Out the Vote org in Ohio or Michigan, where someone says, hey, great news, we're going to just pump $120,000 into you or whatever. mean, I cannot tell you how good that feels if you are that org, because these orgs have their hands full of just trying to do their work. And if someone can start getting them the resources they need so that they can actually hire more people, have more communications or and outreach, then that's such a godsend for people in those shoes. And like you, Sophia, I think, well, if there's something I can do, I can get those folks some resources.
Yeah. I think getting resources to incredible progressives is so important. You know, it's been such an honor for me to get to support so many people around the country, you know, to see Cori Bush, you know, moving ahead in her in
That was
her
an
election.
awesome victory.
Just such an incredible woman. And I think that we have so far to go. And I also think it's incredibly important. You know, there's folks kind of talking about what they want the outcome of 2020 to be. And there's a lot of people, obviously, you know, we're here having this conversation who are still saying like, yang 2020, let's go. I think it's also really important, you know, for us to sit in the reality of where we are and what our options are, and to build hope, inspiration, and innovation in those spaces. I think that right now we have a choice, as Steve Schmidt said earlier, you know, on our live closer to 6 o'clock. We were talking about the fact that right now we either have a choice to right the ship in a way that collectively makes much of America feel very comfortable, or we can descend into fascism and authoritarianism and maybe lose our country. Actually, definitely lose our country forever. So here we are right now talking about the importance of Democrats and progressives and independents and all those folks who sat out 2016 who are kicking themselves, all those folks who voted third party in 2016 who are kicking themselves. I had a conversation with one such man who's based in Oklahoma actually last week, and he was like, it's the regret of my life. And right now we've got to organize against this kind of hatred. We've got to organize against it. We've got to get Joe and Kamala in office, and we've got to elect progressives up and down the ticket. We've got to get so entrenched, each and every person here, into local politics, into politics that protects healthcare and kids access to food, and the list goes on. Oh, also maybe fixes a pandemic. You know, we have a lot of work to do, and my hope is that we can all really get on the same page and do it together. And I wonder what you have to say to folks about what we've got to do for the next 68 days.
Well, we need to make sure that Joe and Kamala get us on the right track. But I agree with you about down-ballot candidates too. And I'll tell you, I'm loving working with down-ballot candidates because you can swing a congressional race without, you know, you don't need millions of people necessarily. You just need like, you know, thousands. If you have a few dozen volunteers, it can be a huge difference maker. There are two candidates that are up on September 1 in Massachusetts, Alex Morse and Robbie Goldstein. I love both of these guys. Like they're incredible. Robbie's a PhD in epidemiology and a medical doctor at Mass General. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you would love to have in Congress. And Alex Morse, that guy is a powerhouse who's been the mayor of Holyoke for a number of years and is a mayor for universal basic income. And he could become this incredible congressman. My organization's endorsed another dozen or so candidates around the country. I love these local races because the character it takes to run for local office is so pure in many of these cases. Like, you really don't do it unless you genuinely want to make something positive happen and you're about things that are much bigger than yourself. So I love helping these local candidates. I would say let's make sure and support Joe and Kamala, but if you have a local candidate you can get behind, freaking pick them up. It can be anything from Congress, the school board, city council, like whatever. And as someone who's run, it is so awesome when someone shows up and says, hey, I believe in you, I want to help. Like, and in a local race, it's like enormous because not that many people are showing up for these local candidates and saying, I'm going to fight it out for you, with you in the trench.
And one of the cool things that I learned, you know, getting into politics early, that I was talking to Noah about as a younger person, you know, he's getting involved kind of for the first election in his experience. And we were talking about how, you know, we've all got to get out there and figure out a collaborative leadership for America. And in this election, that's Joe and Kamala. But there's also the incredible opportunity for us to push our leaders to be more innovative, more progressive, more exciting, to get behind the kinds of policies that matter to us. Things like universal income, things like universal health care, by electing progressive people down ballot, by electing leaders in every city and in every state who are going to push leadership. And that's actually where some of our biggest power lies. We have a responsibility to the nation to protect it, to hold it accountable to live up to its ideals. And we also have incredible power and leverage in local and state elections. So
this is especially good if you're like me and Sophia, where you might be sitting in a really blue state. We're like, Joe and Kamala are going to win where we are. Like, you know, that's one reason why defeat by tweet so important, because it gets money to the swing states.
Yeah.
But do adopt a candidate that you like, that's maybe in a swing district, because the difference between let's say the incumbent and the challenger in some of these races is enormous. Like, I've seen the contrast, Sophia. Like that, I'll give you an example that I'm really into. There's a 78-year-old incumbent named John Carter III, Republican in Austin, Texas. He's been there for 20 years, hasn't really done much. And then his opponent is a woman named Donna Imam, who's like 38 years old, South Asian engineer. Like the difference between John Carter and Donna Imam, it literally feels like the past versus the future.
Wow.
So if you can find a candidate like that you can get excited about. Politics is much, much more exciting when you feel like you know the people. And so if you get to know a candidate, then you will root hard for them and work hard for them.
Yep. I love that. I love it. Well, tonight is all about holding America to her radical ideals. And if you guys want to join us with Defeat by Tweet, if you want to help us raise money for incredible Black leaders in swing states, please hit up radicalnationalchallenge.org. We have some fun things in store for you online tonight. So thank you all so much.
Radicalnationalchallenge.org, defeatbytweet.org. It's all going to the same sort of general cause.
Yes.
But yeah. And Sophia, hats off to you, because you've been hosting this live. I kind of did this weird, like I hosted and you guested, but you've been hosting this live for quite some time, right? You are literally like a one-woman counter-programming to the RNC.
Thanks. That's really kind. It, you know, this feels like my civic duty, sir.
Well, you are a massive upgrade. I haven't caught all of the RNC tonight, but I speak for everyone on this Instagram that they'd much rather be here talking to you. So
well,
on
thanks,
that note, radicalnationalchallenge.org, defeatbytweet.org. Sophia, thank you for everything that you do. I'll tell a story just for the folks here. When I was trying to put together a message against anti-Asian racism, and we looked for people to participate, and you were one of the first people to be like, yes, done, sign me up. And there was like zero nonsense or bullshit involved. You're just like, it's needed, it's a good thing. I'm in, and that's the kind of person you are. That's the kind of character and leadership we need out there. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Emma Lazarus, the poet who we love, who wrote the inscription on the Statue of Liberty, she said it best: until we are all free, we are none of us free. So your pain is mine, and I hope that our collective joy can belong to all of us. I hope that we do the right thing in 68 days, and I hope everyone signs up at radicalnationalchallenge.org, and I hope that everybody votes early and votes with their hearts.
Get it in early. Vote early,
kindness.
people. I'm definitely going to do it. I don't want to leave that thing to chance. So vote early. Let's give ourselves a chance, and let's give ourselves cause to celebrate in just, 68 short days or so.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Sophia. Have a great night. Have a great night. Be safe, everyone.
Bye, guys.